gaba ɗaya sa ya sai sa wala
The SQL Server or SQL statements. Let's create a new. Are we working with the right database?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, data manipulation language, as I said earlier, is a great operation in that and we call those operation COOL operation. Select, or we say create,
Yes.
read,
Yes.
what? Update and delete. And what is create? And you create it using what? The search statement.
Yes.
Right? Reading using a select statement, updating using update statement, and delete using a delete statement. So we're going to start with create. Now how do we insert database? Insert into database. I know it's the basic thing that all of you use. Huh? Okay, let's start with this. Let me use a query window, which is more simpler. So we have this. We have a table product category with just a single column product name.
Yes.
Remember, product ID is an auto incremental, so you can't insert it. So all you need to do is to use the statement insert into. What is the table? Product category. Now, product category, the first thing you need to do is to insert the fields.
Yes.
Is to specify the fields you want to insert data into.
Yes.
The field I want to insert data into is product name.
Yes.
Then, what are the values? What are the values?
Is it not?
Let me clear this. Now, it's like a port you're providing. Now, when you say you want to insert into this table, into this field, you specify what and what are you going to put in it. So value might be something like testing data. Let me explain. In a SQL Server, whatever column we specify, we have to specify a value for it. It's like a pot. It's like a pot or a cup. Let's say a cup. We provide this cup. We provide, let's say 2 cups. And those cups can never be empty. You present the cups, and you say, I want to insert something in it. You need to provide what you need to insert in it.
Yes.
And the paid. You cannot put the content of this cup in this.
The same data. You can't use.
You cannot
one,
put the content of this cup in this code.
Translatable.
Why?
Okay.
Because the size is not the same. Eh? Otherwise, you will have a return error that statement is terminated. Statement will be terminated. Why? Because the size is different. Right? The size what? Is different. So if you specify a column name, which is an integer, you need to provide an integer. What I did now, I put into what? Single quotes, because it's a string. If I did not put it in a single, all this single quotation, it's going to be error. Why? Because what? It's a string. Let's test that. Okay, let's remove. You see that? Huh? So it's automatically showing, telling you that this is not a string data type, so it has to be. So by just extracting this, when we say we want to insert, yeah, and we select it and execute, see what we see, what will have a return. Did we execute it? Yes, sir. What kind of return is this?
You need the reference statement.
Somewhere is being
Does not execute it. So completion time is this, and one row as decided. Now, when we check the product category table, when we check it, let's create something more complex. Using the product table, right? Which is more complex than the product category. Let's say we want to insert all this apart from the product ID. You can as well do it here by saying I want to insert more values, right? But the query will not allow you to that. You have to give it which value. So let's insert the value ourselves. Let me make it in a clear mode. All right. Now we have how many columns here? 1, 2, 5, 6 columns. Right? Now those columns are different data type. I believe the first one is an integer, the second one is string, the third one is a decimal, fourth one 2 decimal, then the fifth one is date time or date, then the last one is an integer. So now let's try inserting value in it.
So the first one will come for access of category ID.
It's an integer.
integer
ID.
for the ID.
Okay, we can pass ID.
We'll pass ID. So what we do, let's say subcategory, if we want to pass the integer, we will note that integer is not in quotation. So you just say maybe you say 1, comma. What is the second value? Product name. It's a string. Remember, put it in quotation. We will say what?
Testing yourself.
Testing product. Okay, sorry. Comma. The next one is decimal.
Purchase.
How does the decimal look? Huh?
It's a point.
1,500.00, right?
Without quotation.
Maybe 2,000.00. Quotation? Without quotation,
Yes.
because it's only strings by including quotation or date, right? So that's selling price.
Yes.
The next thing is date. Are we going to type the date by its name? If you have a specific date, you need to type it. If you want to grab the actual date, the current date, it's very simple. You use a function. How do you use the function? Is this date.
That is
Now this function will definitely return
currently.
the current date. Number of stock, we'll say what? 15. I'll lose. Now the insert statement is what? When we execute, we're going to have a data return. Whenever we have an error here, it will never execute. Do we understand the structure
Yes.
of the insert statement? There's no big deal there. Good. There is a situation, or there's another insert method we call append. We call what?
Append.
Append. Now this, you are giving a value directly from yourself, or you are grabbing it from a parameter that will be supplied by your application whatsoever. When we go to stop procedure, you understand what I mean by parameter. That's where you see parameterized query. You use parameterized query to filter, to insert, to update, to what. So whatsoever you're going to do, you use parameterized query. So when we go to stop procedure, you understand that it's very simple. So there's a situation whereby these values are going to be grabbed from a table. Are you getting me? There's a situation that a value will be grabbed from a what? A table. How do we do that? We call that appending. Right? We call that what?
Append.
Appending. And there's another thing again. It's another insert statement. We call it make table. Now what are the difference? Now the difference is this is directly collecting from a parameter, from the data you input. The append is what the append insert query is now collecting from a table, right? It's picking the data from a table and insert to another table. That's appending. You are picking data from table 1 and insert it to table 2. Maybe while picking it, you do some computation and then you insert in table 2. Then the last one is make table, right? It's make table. You can grab from table 1 and create table, new table, and then insert the data in it. Right? That's make table. We're going to practicalize this too. Maybe today that's that's the end of our lecture today. I think that's enough, because if you go further, you see a lot of operation you do just in insert statement. So for now we're going to practicalize make table before we move to appending. Right? So using the make table, we use that to append a table. So let's try that and see. Let's work on same product table. Same product table. We're going to grab the values here and say, if you want to make table, this is how we do it. Say select. We're going to select this field from what? Product. What? From product. We're going to select the whole fields. From what? Product. But while inserting the data, we want to do some computation and bring out our profit. Are you getting me? Now, we'll do something like this. We have purchase price, we have what? Selling price. So we'll do comma. How do we get our profit from purchase price and selling price? We'll say selling price. We're interactive now. Selling price. And get me now, let's move on.
Purchase price.
Selling price minus purchase price. Hello, Faruku. Office. Now we're going to say we're going to subtract selling price from the purchase price to get our profit. So we call this as, what do we call this? No, what do we call what I did here as?
As.
This is operation.
We call it alias.
Alias.
Now, aliasing, what is aliasing here? If you want to change a field name, you understand? You can change the field name. Let's say stock. Let's say stock as stock count. So I'm directly changing the what? The field name from stock to what? Stock count. That is aliasing. So while performing an operation, you change the name of the table of the field. Like subtracting this from this is another name. It's something meaningful. You give it something meaningful that you understand in the letter use. So we'll give it profit, right? So we are aliasing profit. Sorry. Profit. So now how do we make this table? It's a simple statement. Simple. Very simple. So before the from, before the from statement, we'll say into. So we'll call this table product profits. So now you see what is happening here. What you are saying directly is, I want to select all these fields from this table and create new table called product profit. That's simple what we're trying to say. You understand? You have to specify the name of the table you want to create. Before what? Before the name you want to, the name of the table you want to pull the information from. So what are you doing here? You are creating new, you are performing two operations here. You are creating a table with this field name, and call that table a product profit. You select the data from this product table and insert it into what?
And the product profit.
So you're performing what? Two operations. You are creating table, and you are what? Appending data in the table. Now let's execute. See what happens. Sure, you don't have any table called supposed to be not purchase, right? So it's supposed to product. It's supposed to be okay. Product. Back with the table. Product. So let's execute.
No need to select before you run.
No, just that's the only data. So what happened? It says the record, the query executed successfully and returned 31 rows. 31 rows. That's you have 31 record in the product table. So it copies from product and create new table called product profit, and then save the data in the table. So now let's refresh. We'll be able to see our table created. Where is it? There is it. There is it. Product profit. So let's select from it. Let's remove this. Or do you need it?
Product
Do you need the query?
yes, sir.
Product profit, right? So let's select this. Why is it executing the whole statement? It's not supposed to execute the whole statement. So let's.
Oh, but you forgot to write before the product. Product.
Okay, it's a mistake. We made a mistake here, so we're going to drop the table. Now we drop it and we make the correction. That's the correct statement, right? So we execute and we return. So what happened? We have an additional field. Apart from purchase price, selling price, we have profits. So in some columns, we do not have any profit. Who entered this record? You are selling something without profits. So zero. Anywhere you see zero, that's the profit you get. So you see 70, out of this, you only have 17 naira profit. And what's so kind, when you give discount, you will left with zero. At the end of the day, when you are stupid enough, you will go with negative value. Instead of you to get profit, you will lose. So anywhere you see zero, that means you don't have, even if you sell the product, you don't have profit. So that's how you get your profits, right? So now what we did here was we make table. We make table. So we pull data from different tables, we create new table using the fields, and we now append the data in the table. So that's make table. You will be using this a lot in your project. So get used to it because it's very important. There are some records, especially if you are processing all this numerical data. When you are processing numerical data, that may be likely you will be using this method to drop and add. You will be dropping tables, you will be creating tables and dropping them to get data, to get your final result. So what will happen? What is happening behind the scenes? You don't know what is happening. You can have thousands of tables here, and most of the tables are make tables. You can drop them anytime. They are just there. You drop them, you create them, you drop. So any new data that comes in, you drop, and then you create new one. And that's another method again. You either drop the table or you delete the data from the table and insert new ones. So this is what we call make table. We're going to use that same table, since it has the same parameter with this. We're going to use the product and the product profit table to practicalize append data. So now what is happening here, as I told you, you are creating table at the same time appending, which is more simpler. That's another method, that this table is created already. You don't need to create it. All you need to do is just to select data from this table and then insert it in this table. How do we do that? That's what we call appending. Let's practicalize. Alright, now in appending, we're going to say this data we select, right? Let me copy this. Maybe this a make table. Make table statement. What I'm doing is it's a comment. It's comment, so the compiler will never execute this. So I copy from this. So now, in append, you need to specify the table where you want to insert the data first, before you select what from the data. Now let's try this. Now, how do we do that? It's simple. Let's use query. You don't have to, since we have the data here. So let's just pick this. We'll say insert into, what is the name of the table we want to insert? We call it product profit. Product profit. You remember this? There's another field in the product profit, which is profit, right? Yes. Profit. Are we there? Are we there? So in this, you don't need to specify values. You understand? You just say insert into this. What are the values? You specify the values by saying select all this. Now you remove this into from product. The amount of data, the amount of fields in the insert statement must tally with the amount of fields in what? In this select statement. Otherwise you have error. I don't know whether I'm communicating.
Yes.
Huh?
Yes, sir.
But before we move, let's delete the record in the product profits. Right? Let's delete the record. so that we get a clear table. Before we execute, we say delete from product profit. Okay, now we are deleting from product. 31 record is gone. 31 is gone. So now this is our statement, or shall we copy it to another statement so that we get clear view? Make table is here. I will not delete it. It's there for you. So here we go. We insert into product profit, and we select from the product. But before then, let us select from profit so that you testify yourself that the data is empty. Nothing returned. Nothing has been returned. That means the data is empty. The table is empty. So now let's execute this statement. See what happens. Now, this data has been inserted, has been appended again. When we execute from product profit, the table is appended.
I understand. We understand.
You really understand?
Inshallah.
Huh? We are getting the append statement, right? So it's very simple. We the first time we make table and append it at the same time. But this time around we delete the record and then what? Select it from table, insert. That's called appending. So in so many instances in your coding, you will discover all this. There will be a situation, because I will just keep quiet. There will be a situation whereby you have to pick data from another table and then insert it to another table. When you come to student registration, you will find out that. Because in the student registration, we say for a student in a computer science, ND1, first semester, there are certain courses he's going to offer. So when he registers, if he's ND1, you're going to pick, out of the register, you're going to pick the courses he's supposed to offer in that first year, first semester, and then register it for him. You now pick, select from that table and append to student record. So you are picking the data from basket 1 and then putting it in the basket 2. Simple, that's appending. So in so many instances, you discover that you can use the first method, which is create table, make table, or you use the second instance, which is append. The first instance, that is if you want to perform another computation on the table. That table is temporary. If the table is temporary, you just make the table and then move on. Work on it and then proceed. But if the table is permanent, you have to delete the data in it and then append the new one. You don't need to drop it. Because when you drop, you are in serious mess. We understand all this drop table, create table. Those are not data manipulation language, remember. They are data definition language. Alter, drop, create a data definition language. So you can as well say, okay, you can drop table kada. Or you drop the table, when you say drop table product profit, it's going to delete that table completely. You understand? And a situation whereby if you make table and you want to make another table with that same name, it will tell you that table exists. That table exists. You will never make that name again. unless you use different name. So before you can be able to create that table again, you have to drop the table. Let's try that. And our make table segment. Here's the query. Let's try and execute it once again. There's already an object called product property in the database. Now for we to create this table again, we need to say drop drop table called property. So when we execute this statement again, the first one, the second one is doing the same thing. We are all inserting the database of two different ways.
So now when me bambancin drop and delete.
Drop, when you drop, you are dropping the object. You are deleting the object from the database. When you say delete, you are deleting the content of the object. You understand? You are deleting the data that's stored in the table. When you drop table, you are dropping the whole object completely. DBO, that's database object, right? You are deleting the whole
table.
The whole table. You understand? But when you delete, you are deleting the data. The data that is in the table. Rows in column doesn't columns table. The definition is there. Simple. Any question? For today, any lecture, any question? You have a question. The session is closed. You play with it very well. If you have any question, you ask tomorrow, and then we'll proceed. But make sure you know what I did here. Make sure you understand. You can check online to find more resources, more explanations. But this is from experience view, from enterprise working view. I explain this. You're going to encounter using this method, using this query method in all your applications. Let's say most, or so happy coding.
You must tell that you do. You must tell that.
Okay.